Hi guys, today we're going to be reviewing the Blackstar Series 1 1046L6. Now, I've used Blackstars in the studio before, mostly with a band called Maysetto, who I ended up playing with live a few times. And they always had this fantastic huge guitar sound. One of them was using a Blackstar HT100 and the other was using the original Series 1 that just had the two channels. And for the speaker comparison shootouts that I've been doing recently, I got in contact with Blackstar and said, hey, do you want to send me one of these amps? And they graciously decided to loan me one for a little while, which of course I'd send back. Thank you very much to Blackstar. So this is my review of the 100 series, 1046L6. Now it's an incredibly versatile amp and there's a lot to talk about, but one of the main things is the tone. It's a 6L6 power section, so it gets a big full sound compared to any EL34 amp, and this works really well in a lot of kind of the metal stuff that I've been doing. 6L6s seem to be the way. Now there are 4 switchable channels on this, and there is a foot switch available which came in the box, but I'm just going to press each button and show you each one separately. The clean channel, I've got all the bass, middle and treble and everything at 12 o'clock, just as a starting point, and it already sounds pretty big. This is my Strat with hot rails in, so I'll just pull this out and suddenly that hum indicates to us that we're in single coil mode, but this is the amp at full 100 watts, and the volume, which is the kind of the master volume, is less than a quarter of the way up because I can't be in the same room as it beyond that. It's ridiculous. In a good way, it just keeps going and going. Now, even for recording purposes, I've had the volume just above that quarter mark there, just here. And that was more than enough to get the speakers really moving. Let's just turn that back to humbucker mode just because that's really annoying. So it's got 2 different clean sounds. So let's start with the bright sound, which I have a little cheat sheet down here. The bright sound is ringing British Class A, which doesn't make much sense because when you're talking about clean, you're actually talking about the power section, and this is Class 8B. However, let's try this with the gain quite low and the volume quite high. So everything's at 12, including the ISF, which I'll get onto. So this is my Strat through the clean channel, and that's good. Let's turn off the delay that's going through the effects loop until later. Now, as you can hear on low gain, it's really quite spanky. So that's why, a clean amp to me, when it's on low gain, clean is clean is clean, to a point. But as soon as you start turning up the gain a little, it's still a clean channel, but there's a certain breakup. I'm just going to turn the volume back down to match because this thing can really kick the volume out, and that's... You hear that little bit of crunchy distortion there? It's not a crunch channel per se, it's not like a Marshall design. But that means I can go from that kind of all the way through to... And it's just got those little overtones. Now I'll switch from the bright to the Warm, which is apparently full-bodied Class AB, which, again, the AB is to do with the power section, but if that's what it sounds like, then sure. So that's got more low end that I felt. Warm, for me, was less about the mid-range and more about the real lows, and it sounds like this. So yeah, the clean channel on this is very clean indeed. Now I've got an effect in the effects loop. I've got my Line 6 M5 Stompbox modeler. It's currently off. It's not doing anything. All I had on it is in the intro, and probably will throughout this demo, because we don't want to interfere too much with the original sound. I want to show you what it actually sounds like. Is a delay. So it just does this. So there's just a little bit of. Now, that's all well and good for a clean sound, but what if we want to push that clean sound into that kind of Fender bluesy on a stage at full whack kind of tone? Well, you can't do it on most amps because you'll go deaf, and it's already pretty loud in here. What I can do though is look at this power knob. See, where the master volume is what it says, it is how loud the amp goes. After the master volume is the power attenuator. Now this can go from 100 watts all the way down to 10 watts if I dial it all the way back. And if I remember rightly with power, if it's a tenth of the power, it's half the volume. I think that's right. Someone let me know in the comments, but I think that's right. Now this will come across more quiet. Interesting how that delay comes through a lot more now, because as I'm hitting the guitar, that's sending more sound out to the delay unit. But what I can also do is I can start pushing the gain and possibly the master volume. And let's see how this sounds, because with the power attenuated down to 10 watts, this should start clipping off the tops of the waveforms and really starting to give us a fatness to this clean sound. So we get more of a... That's the clean channel. Wow. So let's back that off a bit and back the master volume back down. See, the difference is not how loud it is. The difference is the response of the power tubes, the response of the speaker. And that was just about at a bearable volume level for me, but with the gain much higher on the clean channel. And as a studio tool particularly, that's really useful. I mean, live... there are other things you can do with this, and I'll come on to those, especially with gain channels. But what you can do in the studio is really get that kind of slight crunch out of a really clean channel, that really kind of forward sound without it being an out-and-out distortion, but without it blowing your speakers up, without it overloading your microphones. And that's one way to get a huge tone. So let's move on from the clean channel. This thing, as you can see, has 2 rows of knobs, and between the 4 channels, there are 2 shared sets of EQs. So let's move on to the crunch channel. Woo. Now this is where things get noisy. I've taken the amp back to 100 watts, but the crunch channel, which is just in standard crunch mode, has the gain just above 12 o'clock. Let's try 12 o'clock. Let's just try it in the middle. With the EQ flat, the bass, middle and treble are exactly what you would expect, and we'll do... I find that distorted channels, I can show you a bit better how the EQ works, because there's a lot more frequency information going on. And unlike a show like that pedal show, there's only one of me, so that's the way it's going to have to be. So this is the crunch channel on the bridge humbucker pickup of my Strat, gain at 12. Now, one of the interesting things that I think I can do here is if I wind the volume back to quite low on the guitar, I should be able to get a relatively clean sound. That really is quite crunchy. If I take the gain back quite a lot on this and bring the volume up, we should get a kind of an AC/DC kind of tone. It's a pretty raunchy crunch channel, I've got to say. Now, let's take the gain back and experiment with the EQ a little. Woo! That's one way to lose your fillings. Not that I have any yet. Now the ISF feature, this, let's put the knobs back to 12 o'clock, this is unique to Blackstar. Now this, looking at the ISF feature, is the infinite shape feature. If I put this all the way to 0, that's USA, which means it's tight and focused and sounds like this. If I turn that all the way to 10, that's British, which apparently is warm and natural. It sounds like this. I can even hear it in the noise changes. It's a definite EQ curve thing going on there. So the crunch channel, it says has a medium gain and a loose bass response. If I press the super crunch button, that's hot rodded gain with a tighter bottom end. Let's see how that sounds. Yeah, it's got that kind of 90s Marshall JCM 900 kind of thing going on. So far we've covered medium gain, high gain with tight bass, bright cleans, and a bassier kind of clean, and we've not even gotten to the overdrive section yet. Now, the overdrives, these are some absolute beasts. So, overdrive 1 is high gain, as you would imagine, and has tight British damping. So let's try this with the bass up, a little mids out, a little more treble, and if it's British damping, let's try it with the ISF on full British, just to begin with. This is probably going to give me some feedback and a lot of noise. Whew! So that really is quite kind of tight. Now, that's a certain gain. Let's see how this one sounds on a solo setting. So let's take this British thing back to kind of the middle. And let's have a look at how a solo would sound with a little delay. Woo! That's a little bitey, but something that the Dead 13 recommended that I try is taking the power back to around 70 watts-ish. Not because it's quieter, but because it takes some of the thuk away from the notes and makes those nice sustaining notes easier to get. So let's try that. Wow! That's loud enough that it's really kind of making the room move a little, but it's not loud enough to kind of cause me permanent hearing damage, at least not yet. It's just over that edge where I'd probably wear ear defenders over the headphones as I was recording, and I'd sit in the room with the amp, because that kind of sustain, you can't put a price on that kind of sustain if that's the kind of sound you're going for. I mean, you can sit in the control room for that kind of ultra clean studio experience, but if you want that blooming feedback, I'm not even trying, I'm not sitting directly in front of the speaker. And that tone, that's Overdrive 1. So let's have a look at Overdrive 2. I can already hear that there's more high end in this channel because the noise is hissing louder. But this, let's take the power back up and try a rhythm on Overdrive 2, which is high gain again, but with loose USA damping. So I'd imagine it's more of that kind of rectifier-y, kind of big, loose, kind of mushy metal thing. So let's try it. Woo! That speaker cab's moving a little. That's fantastic. So let's try this back at 70 watts with a solo. Ooh, that is a crunchy overdrive tone, and I ended up kind of spontaneously playing Dream Theater just for a second there. This is the kind of amp that I think a studio would love to own, because it's got two different cleans, two different types of crunch, two different types of overdrive, and for a studio, especially with the especially with the 10 watt to 100 watt, that doesn't sound like a studio feature, but if you want that clean or that kind of solo tone with a little bit of squashed compression that can give you that blooming tone or that fat clean tone that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get without, even, I mean, this room that I'm in right now, our live room, is soundproofed, and with a 100 watt head loud enough to give you that big searing solo tone, we'll probably get neighbour complaints because it's that loud, it's inhuman, it rattles the windows. And this solution should hopefully bring you back from the brink. Now let's just have a look at some of the other features of this amp. So I'm just going to go round the back. Okay, so the back, there are two speaker outputs with a switchable impedance between 4, 8 and 16 ohms. There is a foot switch that comes with it that can switch between any of the 4 channels. There is an emulated output on the back which can give you, if you're just recording a demo at home, a preamp tube sound. I'm not sure if it engages the power tubes, but it should give you that big crunchy guitar amp sound. If you're on standby with this amp, by the way, you can do silent recording, which means you can record with a tube amp at home and not have to upset the neighbours. And the effects loop, because every good modern amp has an effects loop, can switch between -10 dBV or +4 dBV, which means it's compatible with either stomp boxes in the effects loop or with proper big rack gear, which wants a kind of a stronger input and output, which means it's not going to overload the head as soon as you turn on your effects units. Now that is a lot. I mean, it's not the most expensive amp on the market either. I mean, sure, it's last time I looked, they were just over £1,000, but that's for all of this. I mean, if you buy some of the other amps on the market that have got 1 channel or 2 for the same kind of money or more, they'd better be the exact sound you wanted for that exact purpose, because with this, if it turns out that 1 channel's not exactly the sound you wanted, that one might be, or that one might be, or the super crunch, or the normal crunch might be. There are 2 cleans with completely different responses, so you can run pedals into something that sounds more like a Vox or more like a Fender, say. The volume goes up from loud to crazy, but if you want to practice at a practice room or even maybe the bedroom, I mean, I'd probably suggest a Blackstar HT1 or an HT5 for practicing in the bedroom, because 100 watts, even damped down to 10, is a lot for a bedroom. But the silent recording feature makes that not entirely useless, because I can have this with standby on, with the power on, and take the emulated output to my interface straight to my computer, straight to the Mac, straight to whatever you've got. And that means that I can at least do demo tracking with this, with the exact sound that I've dialed in myself. And then when it does come to studio time, you can turn it off standby, blast it out of an amp, get the microphones in front of the speaker, and off you go. I can't recommend this highly enough. Thanks again to Blackstar for letting us use this head for a while. It's been absolutely fantastic. So now I have to turn it off and get it back in its box and send it on its way. But I really wish that I could keep this, and in the future I may well have one of these because it's absolutely great. And that is my 5-star review. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more gear reviews, more comparisons and shootouts. We do quite a lot of audio tech stuff as well as guitar gear. So let us know in the comments what you thought. And I'm Adam Steele for the Hot Pole Studios. If you want to come down and record with us or mix and master, again, let me know with a direct message and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching. See you soon.